Welcome everyone to another edition of Drunk Agile. 3 weeks in a row, we're wearing the same thing, just weird. I know we'll just go with it. Nisha check. Nisha is right there. Hey Nisha.
Right there.
She thinks we're weird. Did you see the look on her face? She's like, she thinks we're weird. That's
we are Nisha's emotional support animal.
Yep. Prateek saying Daniel Vacanti. Prateek, what are you drinking? Are you?
Well, in previous episodes I was doing the Elijah Craig, but I switched to the Weller Full Proof.
Not a bad choice. Yeah. Is that the peppery one? Is that the?
No. This one's not. This one's the sweet one.
Oh,
this is the wheated one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm drinking ice right now. Sadly, my whiskey died, and I can't bring it back to life. As in the past episodes, I'm gonna kind of kick us off.
We're gonna get past that real fast.
I'm gonna kick us off. I don't even know what we're talking about. Oh yeah, Prateek's been, let's say, provocative, for lack of a better word. And I
ranting.
I hate to admit this, especially while we're recording, but I think he's completely right in all the stuff that he's been saying. But this whole notion of small teams, again, it's one of these things in Agile that people believe that small teams are better than big teams. That whenever a team gets over a certain size, you have to break it up, right? That's what you have to do. Prateek, take it away.
We're gonna try to keep this short. Yeah, it's been a thing that's been perpetuated for a long time. It's the random 2 pizza team thing. I mean, like, if you can't feed a team with 2 pizzas, then it's too big. The pizza night at my place, there's like 3 of us, and you can't feed us 2 pizzas, so that's a different issue. But ideal team size is between 7 and 9. All those things. I know Dan's been on teams. I have been on teams which were upwards of 30 people, and they worked really well. They were very agile teams. They were very good at getting things done effectively, efficiently, and predictably. They were doing all those things. As in science, it takes only one example to disprove a thesis. We have multiple of those examples to disprove this thesis of small teams are better. Should I just keep going, or you can jump in?
You keep going. I mean, I can jump in. Whatever. Keep going.
Go for it. Because I'm going to move somewhere else. Go for it.
Okay. No, I was just, again, I was just going to agree with you. Some of you know the story. Maybe some of you don't. But the very first Kanban team, that I was on, it maxed out at somewhere around 60 people. I don't know the exact number, but it was one team, and there are pictures floating around of that team, and we were still able to get stand-ups done in less than 15 minutes. We were still able to deliver product, like you said, predictably, effectively, and efficiently. There was, at no point did we suffer from the fact that I can think of that we suffered from the fact of that team being too big. The other thing I would add to that, when you're talking about science, again, apologies to people who, I'm not saying, by the way, when we talk about Scrum, I'm not saying if you're doing Scrum, you're a bad person. I'm not saying that. Prateek's not saying that. Right. We're just kind of taking issue with maybe some elements of the framework. But the Scrum Guide actually says, that the ideal Scrum team is, should be. I don't know if it says it absolutely has to be, but it says it should be, I think, 10 people or less. And then it says, I think it even actually says studies show that's ideal. But it doesn't cite any of those. Interestingly enough, it doesn't cite any of those studies in the in the Scrum Guide. And as Prateek mentioned, we both have hands-on experience that kind of invalidates that. So take us somewhere else, Prateek. What else were you going
to say? Think about it this way. Think about everything that someone on at least a software development team, and obviously there are teams outside that have same issues. Everything that all the skills that needs to be available on a software development team if you want to do end-to-end delivery. You need people who can take user requirements and make them interpretable. You need people who can design the UI, the UX of the system. You need people who can write code to implement this stuff. You need people who can test this. You need people who can deploy this. You need people who can monitor this in production. You need people who can take customer calls and figure out what's going on. All these skills, well, I guess you need these skills, if not people. Plus, you need backup for each of these skills so that if one of those people is out, we're not that doing that with 7 people, unless you are very limited in your scope. That I believe in the modern software development world is almost impossible to do everything end to end and deliver value end to end with just 7 to 8 people.
Well, I just think it's funny that, even rugby, where the term Scrum comes from, is not played with 10 or less people. Right? And I know I'm not the first person to say this, right? But somehow we can talk about Scrum with a straight face that say, Scrum team should be 10 or less people when rugby is not played with.
Yeah.
In fact, I think there's some flavors of rugby that are played with significantly more than 10 people. So
Yeah, and probably the most successful and revered teams in the world are the armed forces, and they organize themselves in a lot more than 7 to 8 people group. But here's what makes this worse though. Till now we've talked about, yeah, you need more people, but actually having small teams, in my experience, is harmful for overall agility. That's probably the bigger problem. The bigger problem is that if you have, let's say you have 100 people, 100 people organization, and you believe that should be small teams. So you're like, okay, I'm going to create teams of 10, even on the large side, 10 people, on average 10. So you've created 10 teams. Now these 10 teams have to coordinate with each other. You grow to 200. Now you have 20 teams that have to coordinate with each other. As opposed to if you had, teams of 25 people each, that's 8 teams coordinating with each other instead of 20. So all the same problems that you were trying to avoid for the team, the coordination cost, are now for the organization. So yeah, sure, you've become pretty agile in your little bubble, but overall, the organization has become less agile. And we have always talked about how the real solution is working on fewer things, not having fewer people. If you just focused on the thing that will actually help you, that Dr. Little tells you will help you, which we've proven for years will help you, which is lowering the number of items in progress as opposed to lowering the number of people on the team, you would have gotten probably better results.
how much of agile energy is spent around this idea of dependency management, right? I mean, it's if it's not the first question we get, it's usually top 3, top 5 at least. We always get, oh, how do you manage dependencies? How do you manage dependencies? And I mean, with a straight face, for the most part, we say you don't. Right? You eliminate them. But if you think about the most popular agile frameworks that are out there, especially the most popular scaled agile frameworks that are out there, they're built around this idea of managing dependencies. They're not built around this idea of eliminating dependencies. And one of the absolute best ways to eliminate dependencies, I mean, by definition, a dependency occurs when, as Prateek was saying, you have a skill set that is not on your team, and now you have to rely on a skill set that's from another team to be able to fill that gap that you have. One of the best ways to solve that problem is just make the teams bigger. I mean, why not? I'm not saying that's the only way to solve the problem, but it's one of the best, right?
Yeah, and also I do want to make this point that it's not necessary that larger teams are better. If you do have the ability to deliver value to your customers independently without any dependencies, with the teams of 5, 6, 7 people, great. What matters is flow of value to customers. But if you see that the flow of value to customers is not happening, well, you have options. You don't have to stick with the dogma. You have the opportunity, the ability to say, this 7 people team is not working for us. We're constantly depending on 3 other 7 people teams. Can we form a 28 people team that can just take care of everything?
So we said we were going to make this a pretty quick hitter. I mean, I think we would just keep going on. If I was going to keep going, I'd keep going on ranting and repeating myself. Do you have, as always, I give you the last word, but I'll retain the option to override that last word. What do you have anything else to kind of sum this up for us?
I think this kind of stands for almost every episode of the Drunk Agile broadcast. Make everything subservient to flow, and break any rules that get in your way of consistently flowing value to customers. As long as you're able to flow value to customers efficiently, effectively, and predictably, the rules you're following are great. But if you can't do that, well, break those rules and create new ones.
There you have it. Break rules and create new ones. That's how Nisha lives her life, right?
She's moved. She's broken some rules and moved.
Dang. She's like, why can't I escape these people? Okay. Right. So you guys are weird. I'm not weird. So for Nisha over there, cowering in a corner, for Prateek Singh, my name's Daniel Vacanti. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you in the next episode.
Thank you.